We lost 1,600 years of progress because of a single fire. In 48 BC, Julius Caesar set fire to his own fleet in Alexandria. The flames spread. The great library burned. Over 500,000 scrolls turned to ash. But what if those scrolls survived? What if the library never burned? Let us look at what we actually lost. Eratosthenes was the head librarian. He calculated the Earth's circumference with 99% accuracy. He did this using only a stick and a shadow. Hero of Alexandria lived there too. He built a working steam engine. He called it the Aeolipile. It was basically a toy to him. It sat on a shelf. Now imagine those two men sharing a room. If the library survived, the Industrial Revolution does not happen in 1760. It happens in the year 50. Steam-powered Roman trains would connect Rome to India by the year 200. We do not get the Dark Ages. We get the Space Age. Columbus does not sail to America in wooden boats. We land on Mars by the year 1000. Think about medicine. Galen and Herophilus studied anatomy in Alexandria. They were already mapping the nervous system. Without the fire, germ theory is discovered 1,500 years early. Penicillin is invented during the Crusades. Cancer treatment exists before the printing press. Instead of fighting over scraps of lost knowledge, humanity builds on top of it. In this timeline, you are not watching this on a phone. You are living in a colony on Alpha Centauri, all because a spark in Egypt did not catch. One fire cost us 1,000 years of tomorrow. But maybe some of those scrolls are still out there, waiting in the sand. What if every scroll was protected? What if generation after generation continued adding new discoveries instead of watching old ones disappear? Would science advance sooner? Would medicine evolve faster? Would humanity reach the stars centuries earlier? Julius Caesar nearly erased human history by accident. In 48 BC, the Roman general got trapped in Alexandria, Egypt. To save his army, he ordered his men to burn his own ships in the harbor. The fire got out of control. It spread to the docks and then to the warehouses. Right next to those warehouses sat the great Library of Alexandria. Over 500,000 scrolls, containing the entire sum of human knowledge, were about to turn to ash. History books say this was the end. They say the library burned and humanity entered a dark age. But those books are wrong. This is the story of the fire that never happened. As smoke rose over the harbor, the chief librarian, Demetrios, did not panic. He ran to the center of the library and rang a massive bronze bell. The sound echoed through the streets. Scholars dropped their books. Scribes threw down their pens. Hundreds of students and citizens rushed to the gates. They did not run away from the fire. They ran toward it. Demetrios stood on the steps and gave a simple order: save the scrolls. The volunteers formed massive human chains. They worked in the choking heat, passing delicate papyrus scrolls hand to hand. They carried them down into deep underground stone vaults where the fire could not reach. Others loaded carts and smuggled the most valuable texts out of the city to hidden temples. While they worked, a burning ember landed on the library's wooden roof. A young apprentice saw the smoke and screamed. Dozens of people climbed onto the roof with buckets of water. They fought the flames by hand and put them out. The library survived. When Caesar found out how close he came to destroying the world's knowledge, he was shaken. He asked to meet Demetrios. The general looked at the endless shelves and told the librarian that Rome conquers kingdoms, but this place conquers time. Demetrios looked him in the eye and said it only conquers time if people choose to protect it. Those words changed Caesar. Before he left Egypt, he made a decree. The Roman Empire would now protect the library. He ordered that any book found in Roman territory must be sent to Alexandria, copied, and returned. This saved our world. Because of that decree, copies of these ancient texts were sent to new libraries in Rome, Athens, and Pergamon. If one building burned, the knowledge survived elsewhere. The Great Library became a global network. Every mathematical proof, medical discovery, and map was duplicated. Every discovery, every map, every medical observation, every mathematical proof was copied, protected, shared. One evening, Demetrios stood beneath the library's towering columns. Beside him, the young apprentice who had first spotted the flames. The boy asked, "Will the library last forever?" The old librarian looked at the endless shelves and then answered softly, "No building lasts forever. But ideas can." As the sun set over Alexandria, ships entered the harbor carrying another cargo of scrolls from distant lands. The crisis had passed. The library still stood. History had not been rewritten by a great battle or by a mighty king, but by ordinary people who refused to let knowledge burn. And with every scroll placed safely upon its shelf, the future quietly became brighter. We kept it because a group of ordinary people refused to let it burn. The fire was gone, but the panic stayed. The scholars of Alexandria realized a hard truth. If you only have one copy of a book, you do not actually own it. You are just holding on to it until it burns. So they changed everything. They built massive underground vaults deep in the solid stone. They designed clever air vents to keep the humidity out and the scrolls dry. They did not just rebuild. They created the first backup system in human history. Every single book got copied 3 times. One copy stayed in Alexandria. One went to another major city. The third went deep inland with a trusted caravan. If a library burned somewhere else, the knowledge survived. Ships arriving at the harbor brought more than spices. They brought ideas. Indian mathematicians brought new ways to calculate. Persian astronomers brought detailed maps of the night sky. Egyptian doctors wrote down centuries of medical secrets. Greek thinkers debated logic. Roman builders shared how to make concrete that lasted. The library became a giant magnet for the smartest people alive, but they had a massive problem. Nobody spoke the same language. Thousands of scrolls arrived in scripts no one could read. They sat together and translated books into multiple languages. They made sure no discovery stayed locked behind a language barrier. A sign at the door said knowledge belongs to those who share it. Soon, students walked thousands of miles to get here. Some stayed for months, others stayed for 30 years. Many returned home, carrying copies of manuscripts that transformed their own cultures. The library stopped just collecting things. It started giving them away. It became a place of real testing. Astronomers built giant tools on top of stone towers. Engineers built machines powered by water. Doctors wrote down the exact steps for surgeries. Mathematicians figured out how to measure the size of the Earth. One day, a young student ran into the astronomy hall. He had a weird observation. He said a star was moving differently than all the others. The older scholars laughed at him, but the head astronomer did not. He asked the kid to show his math. Hours went by in total silence. The kid was right. They did not ignore him because he was young. They rewarded him. They copied his work and saved it. That was the rule in Alexandria. Facts mattered more than your title. Proof mattered more than your age. An old teacher used to tell his students that the worst enemy of truth is thinking you already know it. Those words spread fast. Kings from other countries sent letters asking for science books. Traders carried maps across deep oceans. Doctors mailed treatments to each other. Builders used designs invented in Alexandria. Ideas moved faster than soldiers. One night, the head librarian climbed to the roof. The giant lighthouse lit up the water below. Ships were arriving from everywhere. He looked at the stars and said the universe is writing its own book. Below him, the library glowed with thousands of small lamps. The city went to sleep, but the library never did. And somewhere in those dark rooms, the next big discovery was waiting on a shelf. A library in Egypt almost started the Industrial Revolution 2,000 years ago. In our history, the great Library of Alexandria burned down. But imagine if it survived. Imagine if it grew. For centuries, the brightest minds gathered under one roof. Ideas that used to live in isolation now met every single day. And when ideas meet, they evolve. The scholars noticed something. Greek math solved Egyptian engineering problems. Babylonian astronomy made navigation safer. Indian numbers made hard calculations easy. No single country had all the answers. Together, they had most of them. The library started a strict rule. Every new discovery had to be tested. It had to be observed. It had to be repeated. Only then did it get copied into the main archive. Knowledge was not kept just because it was old. It was kept because it was true. This was the scientific method, centuries ahead of schedule. Young students were told one thing: do not ask who said it. Ask if they can prove it. That changed everything. The observatories grew. Night after night, astronomers tracked the stars. They noticed the planets did not move like the old book said. Instead of ignoring the error, they built better tools. They got better measurements. Generation after generation, the map of the sky got clearer. Engineers had their own revolution. Watermills spread across Egypt. Better gears made machines run faster. Mechanical pumps watered dry farms. Then came the steam experiments. An engineer named Heron built a small spinning sphere run by steam. In our timeline, people just thought it was a cool toy. In this library, they funded it. They built workshops. Metal workers made the design stronger. Within 20 years, basic steam engines helped pump water out of mines. They were not trains yet. They were not factories. But the first step was done. Medicine moved just as fast. Doctors stopped guessing. They wrote down every treatment, every failure, every success. Hospitals sent these reports back to Alexandria. Patterns appeared. Better surgeries spread across the sea. People started living longer. Diseases were actually understood. The library became the brain of the world. Nothing useful was ever forgotten. One day, a philosopher walked into the engine workshop. He watched the gears spin. He laughed and said, "Machines cannot think." The engineer smiled. He said, "No, but they can free us to think more." The philosopher stopped. He nodded. That single conversation started 20 years of new machines. Maps got better too. Sailors came back from long trips with real measurements. They mapped the coast of Africa. They found safer routes to India. Ocean currents were written down. The sea became a massive classroom. As the years went on, kings in other lands took notice. Rulers stopped competing just for bigger armies. They started competing for the best scholars. Building a library became the ultimate flex. Funding science became the mark of a great leader. The race for knowledge was on. An old librarian was walking through the halls. A young boy walked up to him. He asked, "How many books are in here?" The old man smiled. He said, "I do not know." The boy looked confused. "You do not count them." The librarian handed him a scroll. He said, "We count something much more important." The boy asked, "What is that?" The old man replied, "The questions they help us answer." Outside the walls, the massive lighthouse of Alexandria guided ships into the harbor. Inside, the library guided humanity toward the future, one page at a time. By the 5th century, the ancient world had built something it never thought possible. The Great Library was no longer just a building. It was the hub of a global network. New libraries popped up in Rome, Athens, Antioch, Carthage, and Constantinople. Every single one of them connected back to Alexandria. When someone made a discovery in one city, scribes copied it and sent it to the others. Knowledge did not travel by luck anymore. It traveled by design. Scribes called this system the chain of learning. If a fire or flood damaged one library, the others kept its memory alive. For the first time, humans had a backup system for civilization. Students walked for months or sailed across dangerous seas just to get here. They did not come for wealth or power. They came for answers. Alexandria took everyone in. A poor farmer's son from Egypt sat right next to the child of a wealthy Roman senator. A merchant from Persia debated astronomy with a Greek philosopher. An Indian engineer shared math formulas with North African architects. Nobody cared where you came from. They only cared about what you wanted to learn. Over time, paper replaced papyrus. Books got easier to make and faster to send. The number of books grew bigger than anyone ever dreamed. Libraries were not just for the rich anymore. They became a normal part of every big city. Then, one invention changed the game. A scholar in Alexandria built a mechanical copying press. It used carved wooden plates and heavy pressure. It was slow compared to modern printing, but it was a massive upgrade from writing by hand. A book that used to take months to copy now took just a couple of days. Information spread faster than ever before. More people learned to read. Schools opened in tiny villages that never even had a single book. Teachers packed mobile libraries into wooden carts and traveled from town to town. Kids learned to read generations earlier than they did in our own history. This changed everything. Not just school. Farmers figured out better ways to water their crops. Doctors found treatments that actually worked. Builders learned how to make stronger walls. Sailors crossed open seas with real confidence. Every single job got better because people shared what they knew. One night, a massive debate broke out inside the Hall of Maps. A young sailor argued that there had to be giant, undiscovered lands across the Western Ocean. Most of the older scholars laughed at him. They said it was impossible. But the head mapmaker just smiled. He looked at the kid and said, "Let us prove him wrong, or let us prove him right." The library funded the expedition. In Alexandria, people did not fear hard questions. They welcomed them. Soon, kings and queens stopped fighting over who had the biggest army. Instead, they competed over who had the best university. The richest kingdoms spent their gold on observatories, hospitals, workshops, and free public schools. Smart citizens became the ultimate status symbol. An ambassador once visited Alexandria and asked the head librarian a question. "What is your most valuable treasure here?" The old librarian did not point to the gold decorations. He did not point to the rare scrolls locked in vaults. It was packed with kids, students, teachers, and researchers. The librarian looked at the ambassador and said, "None of these books." The ambassador looked confused. The librarian smiled and said, "The mind's reading them." Outside the library, the harbor never slept. Ships arrived day and night, carrying spices, glass, silk, and gold. But the most valuable cargo they brought was always the crates of new manuscripts. Every single ship that docked made humanity a little bit smarter. The giant lighthouse guided the ships safely into the harbor. The great library guided the rest of the world into the future. They were the two lights of Alexandria. One lit up the dark water, the other lit up human potential. And somewhere out there, the biggest secrets of the universe were still waiting to be found. Not hidden from humanity, only waiting for someone curious enough to ask the next question. The Great Library of Alexandria never burned down. In this timeline, it survived. That one difference changed the world forever. For 2,000 years, humanity never had to start over. Every generation built on the last. Ancient Greek astronomy, Egyptian engineering, Roman architecture, and Indian mathematics. All of it stayed safe. Knowledge flowed continuously. Nothing disappeared into history. In the 15th century, the world was ready for a new age. But it arrived much sooner. The navigators of Alexandria had the most accurate maps ever created. Astronomers could calculate latitude with perfect precision. Ocean currents were recorded for centuries. Seasonal winds were documented. The Atlantic was no longer a terrifying mystery. It was just the next big question. One spring morning, an expedition left Alexandria. Not to conquer, but to find out what was out there. The ships were massive. They had multiple masts, improved sails, and reinforced hulls. Magnetic compasses guided every course. Detailed star charts confirmed every position. The voyage that once seemed impossible was now easy. Months later, the fleet saw land. Dense forests stretched to the horizon. Great rivers flowed to the sea. People already lived there. History remembers first encounters as violent. This one was different. The explorers spent generations studying foreign cultures. Their first instruction was simple: observe before you judge. The ships carried interpreters, naturalists, physicians, and cartographers. Break time 0.3 seconds. Scholars stood alongside sailors. They exchanged gifts. They learned unfamiliar languages. They recorded local traditions. They mapped new coastlines together. Back in Alexandria, the library received reports unlike anything ever written. Unknown plants, new animals, medicinal herbs, agricultural techniques, entire ecosystems never before described. Every page expanded what humanity knew about the Earth. The discoveries transformed Europe, Africa, and Asia, not through conquest, but through exchange. New crops reached the Old World: maize, potatoes, tomatoes, and cacao. Communities grew them. Food became abundant. Famines stopped happening. The population increased. Meanwhile, the library insisted on a rule: every culture has knowledge worth preserving. Teams of scholars traveled across continents. They documented oral traditions before they disappeared. Languages were recorded. Stories were translated. Science was shared. The library became a collection of civilizations. One afternoon, a young apprentice stared at a massive globe inside the Hall of Geography. He asked if there was anywhere left to discover. The old cartographer smiled. He rotated the globe and said, "There is always another question." Those words were carved above every map room in Alexandria. As maritime exploration grew, so did cooperation. Ports around the world exchanged weather reports. Navigators updated charts. Scientists measured tides, ocean temperatures, and magnetic changes. The sea became humanity's greatest laboratory. By the 17th century, Alexandria's influence reached far beyond the Mediterranean. Universities across 4 continents shared discoveries almost immediately. Books traveled faster than armies. Ideas crossed borders more easily than kings. The Renaissance never ended. It just kept going, century after century. As another expedition disappeared past the horizon, the library prepared empty shelves. Not because anything was lost, but because they knew the future always brings new knowledge, and they had to make room to save it. The year is 2026, but not our 2026. This is a world where the great Library of Alexandria never burned. It never disappeared. For over 2,000 years, it just kept growing. It became humanity's memory. If you look at Earth from space today, the continents look the same. The oceans are still blue. But one spot on the Mediterranean coast shines brighter than almost anything else. Alexandria is still the center of the world. The ancient lighthouse was rebuilt several times over the centuries. Now, the modern version rises hundreds of meters into the sky. It is a lighthouse, an observatory, and a space communications tower, all at once. Next to it sits the Great Library. It is no longer just a building. It is an entire city district. You will find miles of reading halls, research labs, museums, digital archives, and artificial intelligence institutes there. And beneath it all, climate-controlled vaults protecting millions of original manuscripts. Some are over 2,000 years old. Students from every single nation come here to study. Every language is spoken in these halls. Every culture is represented. Knowledge has no borders here. The library has one rule that never changed. Every scientific discovery made on Earth must have a copy stored in Alexandria. They save it on paper, on digital drives, and in quantum storage. Nothing is ever lost. This unbroken chain of learning changed everything. Technology moved much faster. Medicine advanced without stopping. Mathematics evolved continuously. Engineering never had to relearn forgotten secrets. Because of this, humanity reached the moon decades earlier than in our timeline. The first colony on Mars followed soon after. It did not happen because people were smarter. It happened because they did not have to reinvent the wheel every few hundred years. Inside the Grand Hall, a young researcher looks at a display. Behind thick glass sits a weathered papyrus scroll. It is the original work of Euclid. Right next to it, a modern holographic projection shows the same math principles running on a quantum computer. 2,000 years apart, but completely connected. Knowledge builds upon knowledge. Nearby is the Hall of Lost Questions. This is a museum for ideas people once thought were impossible. Flying machines, vaccines, submarines, and space travel. Each display is a reminder that the impossible usually becomes ordinary. Over the entrance, one sentence is carved into the stone. Every answer begins as someone's question. Outside, silent electric trams glide past ancient marble courtyards. Students sit under old olive trees, discussing astronomy. Engineers test new clean energy systems. Doctors work with historians to study ancient diseases. The past and the future live together. One afternoon, a little girl visits the library with her grandmother. She looks up at the endless shelves of books. She asks if anyone has ever read all of them. Her grandmother laughs softly. No, and that's wonderful. The girl asks why that is a good thing. Her grandmother tells her it means we still have more to learn. As night falls, the lights of Alexandria reflect on the water. Research ships leave the harbor. Satellites pass overhead. Spacecraft launch toward Mars. Deep under the streets, robotic archives quietly save the day's new knowledge for people who are not even born yet. Civilizations are not remembered for the monuments they build. They are remembered for the knowledge they choose to protect. And because one library survived, the future arrived just a little bit sooner. The great Library of Alexandria did not just burn down. It took centuries to die. Some blame Julius Caesar and his war. Others blame religious mobs. But the truth is much worse. It died because people stopped caring. They stopped copying the scrolls. They stopped paying the librarians. 1 million books turned to dust because of neglect. But what if we made a different choice? What if that library survived? Imagine a world where we never lost that knowledge. We would be living in a different century right now. Our ancestors would have built steam engines in the Middle Ages. We would have landed on Mars before the year 1900. Cancer might have been cured before your great-grandfather was even born. The Dark Ages simply would not exist. This is not just a fantasy. It is a real possibility we missed. Think about the math we had to reinvent. Think about the medical secrets we had to discover all over again. We spent 1,000 years just trying to get back to where we already were. The cost of that loss is impossible to calculate. Today, we think our digital world is safe. We think the internet cannot burn, but we are wrong. Servers crash. Hard drives degrade. Formats change and become unreadable. We are currently creating a digital dark age. If we do not actively save our data today, it will vanish just like Alexandria did. The scrolls of today are the websites you visit every single day. If nobody saves them, they disappear forever. Go to any website from 15 years ago. Most of them are already gone. The links are broken. The images are missing. The files are deleted. We are losing our history in real time, and we do not even notice. We are repeating the exact same mistake. We think someone else is taking care of it. It is up to us. A child walks through a modern library today and asks a simple question. Why do we keep all these old books? The answer is simple. We keep them because we have to. If we do not, we forget who we are. We forget where we came from. We forget how to build a better future. Every book you read is a conversation with a dead person. It is a way to travel through time. It is the only real magic we have. When you destroy a library, you destroy a time machine. You trap yourself in the present moment. You limit your vision to only what you can see right now. That is what happened to the ancient world. They lost their map of the past, so they had to wander in the dark for 1,000 years. Let us not make that mistake again. Let us not make that mistake again. Keep reading, keep writing, keep saving the things that matter, because the next dark age is only one power outage away. The archive is closed for tonight, but the questions never stop. What is the next story we will lose? What is the next secret we will forget? Tomorrow, we will open another book. We will look at another path we did not take. We will explore the secrets that were left behind. Until then, keep your eyes open. Keep searching for the truth, and never assume that what we have today will be here tomorrow. Good night. Thank you for opening another hidden archive. Until our next journey.